Hi, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
No problem.
So today we're going to chat about the time that you ran into a grizzly bear and unfortunately had quite the encounter. So the purpose of this is really for me to share with the world and the public and people that are heading outdoors, opportunities to learn from people's experience. So people who've actually seen bears in real life and experienced negative encounters and in some cases attacks like yourself. And not to sensationalize what happened to you, but rather to talk about what you learned from that experience. So that's kind of why we're here today.
Sounds good. Yeah, there's a couple of very good learnings from that encounter. So happy to share.
Okay, good. Yeah, there always seems to be. So let's start off with what happened and when and where this incident happened for you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell the whole story. So it happened while I was working with the backcountry trails team with Alberta Parks. And I was out in Kananaskis, out near Calgary. And I was working with a group of volunteers, just doing some trail repair work. And I decided to hike up alone to kind of take a look at the next section of trail we were going to work on. So I grabbed my backpack and I had my bear spray with me, and off I went. And I came up kind of over a hill, and there was Mama Grizz with her two cubs, and she saw me right away, and I saw her right away, and she didn't like me there, so she came almost immediately charging at me, and I had made the mistake of carabinering my bear spray to my backpack. So if you've ever tried to take something off a carabiner while a grizzly bear is running at you, it's hard to do quickly. So anyway, she got within about 5 feet of me, and I knew I wasn't getting my bear spray out in time. So I was like, okay, I either tuck and hold on, or I just try and scare the crap out of her. So I threw my arms up in the air and screamed at her and kind of took a step towards her, and it stunned her a little bit. She was like, what's this guy doing? But she got a little bit peed off at me and gave me a swat across the sort of arm and chest, which sent me tumbling down to the ground. And luckily, when I was down on the ground, I was able to get my bear spray off my carabiner. And I was like, well, I hope she doesn't come back. But sure enough, she did. Charged at me again, but this time I was able to deploy my bear spray in her face, and then she went screaming away. And yeah, it was a really weird sound. Never knew a bear could make that noise, but she went screaming away, probably looking for some water. And her two little cubs went after her, and that was it. And I was left with some bruised ribs, a torn up work vest, and a sprained ankle. So I got away pretty lucky, all things
Wow,
considered.
you certainly did. So you were wearing like a crew vest at the time, right? Over top of your clothes.
Yeah, it's like, it's like a construction vest, but it's made of like really thick nylon.
Yeah.
So I was pretty lucky to be wearing that, because that's, I think, what stopped me from getting any sort of, getting it scratched straight through or whatever. But it tore through that vest pretty good, ripped some pockets off and stuff. But yeah, I did my best ninja impression trying to avoid her swatting me. So that might have helped as well.
That's amazing. It's incredible how fast they can run, isn't it?
She closed like 50 yards, and I don't know, it seemed like less than 5 seconds for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was like right on top of me, and I was fumbling there with my bear spray trying to get it off the carabiner, and it just was not going to happen. So yeah.
No, I'm trying to think of who would be good with a carabiner, but maybe just like mountain guides where they're just constantly playing with these carabiners. But the average,
well, they'd probably be good with it, but it's a different experience when you've got a giant animal running at you, to take it off, because my hands were shaking and you're just like trying to get this thing off. So yeah, that was probably my biggest mistake, was not having either a belt or one of the scat belts on to be able to pull that out really easily. Because if I had that, I would have pulled it out and I would have had it in time to spray her the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having it physically on you. I'm trying to recall. You normally wear it in the same spot every day when you head out to work, right? On your.
Well, when I was working, yeah, we had like I actually had bought a scat belt. I was just dumb and wasn't wearing it that day. But I usually, if not, I carry it in the front pocket of my cruise vest. But I think that day I had it attached to my backpack, and I didn't really think I was going to be alone. So I don't know. I just wasn't, I didn't kind of do the right assessment when I went off on my own, and should have put the bear spray in my pocket.
So yeah, my next question, of course, is, what did you learn from this experience? Like, if you could do it over again, what would you do differently?
Right. Well, I guess number one, I could have grabbed a couple of volunteers to come with me up the trail, because just stronger in numbers kind of thing. But I don't know if I would have really done that different. Like, the biggest thing was the bear spray. If I would have had that more accessible right away, it obviously worked really well, because as soon as I sprayed her, the attack, it wasn't, I guess it was a defensive attack, ended. So really that was really the big one. Maybe making a little more noise as I was coming up, which I tend to do if I'm with people, whereas I was alone. So I don't know. I was probably just a little too content because I've been out there a lot and just cruising around. And I'm probably like safer than most that are spending time out there. But I just hadn't thought it through probably as well as I should have.
Yeah. I mean, you get so used to going to some of the same trails and places, and when you're with people and stuff, you just don't think about it. Yeah. And just that moment where you walked off by yourself ended up being that one time you, of course, run right into a bear.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember your phone call that day when you called me and you'd said, "Hey, Kim, I just want you to know what happened." And I mean, after that, I thought, I wonder if, will he head back to work next week? Like, did it change your perspective on bears for the better, for worse? Were you more fearful or respectful? How did you feel after that experience?
No, it's a pretty good question. I don't think my perspective changed much, because I always, I knew that was a potential. That's why I carried bear spray, and I knew that it worked. So I was always pretty confident to be out there. It's just I just learned my lesson of making sure if I'm going to carry it, I might as well carry it in a place where it's going to be very easy to access. And then, yeah, as far as I went back to work the next day, and I was out in the bush again. But so I was a little on edge, I would say, when I heard a twig break for a few days. But no, I don't think my perspective changed a whole lot from that one incident. Because like you say, knowing you and kind of living out there for so long and working, and it was just, it kind of happened how I thought it might happen. If you come up on a mama grizzly with 2 cubs, and that they can come at you. So if I would have just had my bear spray better accessible, I wouldn't have had quite as good of a story probably.
Yes. Yeah, we'd have a different story on our hands, possibly, for sure. Which is, I'm so grateful that you knew to carry bear spray. But wow, what a great reminder! Carry it in the same place every time. Make sure it's easily accessible. Always, like you said, make lots of noise on the trail. Try to group up when you can. I mean, there's going to be times when we're by ourselves. Even when we're in a group, we go off to the bathroom. We're like, hey, I'm just going to go check this up at the trail. So I totally get how these things can happen, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing we started doing with my crew that I supervise is we actually practice pulling the bear spray out. And that's something we never really did before. We just carry it, and I was like, yeah, well, we know how to use this. It's pretty easy. But we just sort of practice pulling it out while someone ran at somebody, and it was illuminating how
it's tempting to spray depending on who it was. Manager.
Yeah, well, we didn't spray anybody. That's good. Yeah. Alberta Parks, we did not spray anybody.
No one was sprayed, no one was injured.
Yeah. It was just an exercise, and okay, you have to do this fast. Can you do it fast? because it's not like the bear just sits there and is like, well, let's just wait till they get their bear spray out. So this is a fair encounter. She was just, like I say, teed off, and she came ripping at me 100 miles an hour. It felt like, as she was fast.
Yeah. 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 It's amazing how quickly they move. But yeah. No,
And I have no idea if it was the right thing to do to scream at her. It just was sort of instinctual. I was just like, well,
sure.
like I say, I was either going to ball up and just hope she left me alone, or scream at her. And I just ended up freaking out. And
Yeah.
it was a good scream. So I think I just kind of confused the heck out of her. She was like, what the heck is this guy doing?
Yeah, for sure. And I always have a difficult time when people ask me this, or the media calls are like, what could that person have done better? And it's so hard when you're not the one there. Like it's you experiencing it. And we train people and we try to encourage them to do the right thing. But my recommendation would be to you is, if I ran into a grizzly bear with cubs and they were showing defensive signs, she starts making a charge at me, I'm like, whoa, I think I've surprised her. Always we would say is pull out your bear spray and use it. As the bear's charging, but you weren't able to do that. The second thing I would say is drop to the ground and play dead.
Right.
And unfortunately there is some bad advice out there that tells people to put their arms up and talk to the bear or yell at the bear. And for that bear, that perspective is you're being aggressive, is that you're like, you're trying to up the ante, like, I'll scare you some more. But I can understand instinctually, like how you would be like, I don't, I'm in a really rough situation. I can't get up my bear spray. And you may choose to go with the aggressive stance versus the drop to the floor and play dead. Like that's a hard thing to ask someone to do. Which is why, we really encourage people to wear their bear spray so they don't even have to get to that place.
Right. Yeah. Like you're right. I wasn't thinking about it. I was just like, what do I do now? Okay, I'm just going to scream at this bear and see what happens. And I was just lucky. I think it surprised her more than anything, but it certainly didn't stop her coming at me. Like she just stopped and then was like, okay, now I'm going to come at you again. So I can see what you're saying with like, there's probably perceived aggression. And,
yeah, for sure.
But it just surprised her. I was just lucky that was able to give her a pause.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely taught her, I don't want to go near that guy again.
Something's wrong with that guy.
Something's really wrong with that guy, for sure.
I get that a lot.
Yeah. Well, you pretty much answered all my questions, and our advice, giving people advice for recreationists, for what do you do, when you're out there, and what would be your number one thing from that experience you would say do in the future?
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, carry your bear spray where it's accessible. So get a scat belt or get a belt that you can just whip it out. Do not carabiner it to your backpack, because it's just not. You're not going to be quick enough as you think you might be.
Oh, awesome. All right. Thanks, Dan, for your time.
No problem.